Hey y'all, happy Monday. I am so glad that you are joining me again this week. And what a week last week was, right? So lately there have been a lot of updates in the Podosphere, and a lot of things are affecting podcasters, social media things, RSS feed things, all kinds of things, all kind of new updates that are kind of happening. So I've got several questions about them over the last several weeks. And so why not just dive right into that today? One of the questions I get all the time is, or should I be submitting my podcast to? And usually there's always, you've got Apple and Spotify and Stitcher and Google Podcast, and there's a slew of them. But a lot of times I get, what is the number one podcast directory? Well, and usually I say Apple. But y'all, this surprised me. As of this month, Spotify holds the number one spot with 31.3% of all podcast listeners. That's over 23 million podcast downloads, up from 25% in 2020. Now, Spotify grew its podcasting platform significantly in the last year, and probably most of that was due to the exclusive sponsorship deal with the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. And speaking of Spotify, they are making some changes to the podcast subscriptions. Now, I talked about this on an earlier episode on the podcast, but they've made some changes, and so I kind of want to go through them. So they have recently opened up access to podcast subscriptions to all podcast creators in the United States. So through Spotify's podcast creation tool, Anchor.fm, now all podcasters, like I said, in the United States, so podcasters of all sizes, will now be able to mark selected episodes as subscriber-only content. Then you can publish them to Spotify and other platforms. Now, since this sponsorship was launched, more than 100 podcasts have adopted subscriptions, according to Spotify. And because of this, they're making a few changes. So before, creators could choose between one of three price points, $2.99, $4.99, and $7.99 per month. And creators were able to choose which price point made the most sense for their audience. But since then, the company learned that creators wanted more flexibility in their pricing. Of course they did, right? So what they're doing is they're expanding the number of price points to basically 20 options, starting as low as 49 cents and then increasing all the way up to $150 per month. Now, Spotify explained that their research found that creators wanted some sense of where to start with pricing rather than offering a completely open-ended system. So going forward, Spotify will show three price points that tested really well: 99 cents, $4.99, and $9.99. And then it'll list the other 17 options. Now, of those three main ones, Spotify has said that the $4.99 price point was the best performing. So there you go. Now, so in addition to the ability to set pricing and gain access to that private RSS feed so that listeners can use a different podcast app if they choose to, if they're just not a big fan of Spotify. Additionally, they're also going to offer podcast creators the ability to download a list of contact addresses of their subscribers so that you can further engage with your subscriber base to offer them more benefits, according to Spotify. Now, this could be a great selling point for those who would otherwise not want to get on board with a paid subscription if it meant maybe losing a more direct relationship with their customer. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool changes happening at Spotify. They are growing at a rapid rate, and I'm really liking their listener subscription model. I think it's one of the better ones that are out there. Personally, I'm still a big fan of Patreon. That's my number one go-to when people ask about podcast monetization for subscription-based models. But this is actually a pretty good deal. It's a pretty good deal. So the other thing that a lot of people were talking about, Instagram is back in the news again. So this time they are talking about the swipe feature. In order to have the swipe feature, you have to have 10,000 plus followers. on Instagram. But recently, Instagram announced that they are taking away the swipe up feature. So they are going to be retiring this feature, which was confirmed by Instagram. And so instead of the swipe up link that you could have in there, people will be able to use link stickers, which are exactly as they sound, tappable stickers in stories that take people to an external website. Now, Instagram says it's retiring the swipe up feature to streamline the story creation experience and offer more creative control, given that users can format the look of stickers and not the swipe up. Now, Instagram says that for now, only people who had swipe up privileges, 10,000 or more, will receive the sticker option. However, it's still evaluating rolling it out to more users. And they say that this update will help them determine whether it's the right decision before expanding access to more people. So, first of all, it was to more video-based with reels and stories to kind of compete with TikTok. And now this. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not really sure how I feel about this. I think it might be good because it's a more of a customizable feature. Although the swipe up for more information, that has become such a commonplace thing, it's going to be weird to hear tap on the sticker or whatever people begin to say. I'm going to be doing some more research on that and seeing exactly how that works. And if you have this feature, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you think, what you like, what you don't like, all those kinds of things. One of the other things is Google Podcast is making some changes. So starting September 21st, Google is going to be enforcing updated information requirements for all podcasts on their Google Podcast platform. Now, if a podcast does not provide the required information, they will not appear in Google Podcast recommendations. They'll still appear on the search results, and users can continue to subscribe to it. If you're using a podcast host provider like Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Captivate, or many of the other ones that are out there, you're going to be able to provide this missing information using your podcast management settings. If you are one of that where you edit your RSS feed directly, you can easily provide this information into your RSS feed with the appropriate tags. In order for the information at the show level to be eligible to appear in the recommendations, you need to have a couple of things. Here's some of the changes that Google is saying they need to have. It needs to have a valid, crawlable image, which must be accessible to Google, so you can't block it or require a login. A show description, basically a user-friendly show description that accurately describes your show. You should already have this if you're on Apple Podcasts. A valid email address, and that's basically just they're wanting to verify show ownership. The podcast author name, which of course does not need to be the same name as the owner, but this is the most important one, a link to a homepage for the show, because linking your podcast to a homepage will help the discovery and presentation of your podcast on Google surfaces. Now, I talked about this a couple weeks ago about having a homepage for your show. If you don't, this is just one more reason why you should have a landing page, a web page, something that's external for your show, for show notes, resources, whatever the case may be. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me at tammy@tammymunsoncreative.com. Now I have a question for you. Have you left a review for the show? If not, why, friend? No. If you haven't, or you haven't in a while, I would love for you to do that. And all you have to do is to go over to my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, and let me know in the review section one thing you've learned or loved or hated about the show. And your comments mean the world to me. I read each and every one of them. So thanks so much in advance, y'all. So it's a really short episode today. Just wanted to make sure that you guys got this information. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in contact with me, send me an email, hit me up on Instagram in the DMs. And Thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly appreciate it. I love having these conversations with you. And you're going to want to make sure to tune in next week, because next week I am talking about why having a niche for your podcast is going to help you grow your audience. So good. Can't wait to talk about that. Now, ladies, I believe in you. Y'all are my heroes. I believe inexperience, production fatigue, and intimidating tech should not hold you back. So let's do this. Let's walk together through this journey to spend less time worrying about the details and more time spreading your message. I hope that you have a great week. May God bless all of you, and I'll talk to you next Monday. Bye, y'all.